30 in the room now. That's nice. So yes, we'll start, or we'll keep letting people in as they turn up. So thank you very much, everyone, for agreeing to spend your Thursday evening with us and some incredible musicians who are going to be discussing their experiences as female musicians, but also as disabled female musicians. And I think it's just going to be a fantastic discussion. So to explain who's put the event together, this is been brilliantly created by John Shortall and Rose Delcourt Min from the Musicians Union, and they have partnered with us, the F List, to put on 4 events over the month of March to celebrate Women's History Month. So sort of recognising that not everything has to happen on just International Women's Day. In fact, we've got a whole month to have events and celebrate female musicians. And for those who don't know who the F List is, it's a website directory and a not-for-profit organisation that I set up last year. And its aim is to provide professional and promotional opportunities for female musicians. So it's the website directory now has over 5,000 female musicians listed on it from the UK, and it's a brilliant searchable directory. And also the not-for-profit organisation behind it, we're doing great work, and these events and partnering up for events like this is part of our work, and much more. So you can check out our website, flistmusic.uk, for further information. So first of all, just to let you know that in tonight's session, we're going to have a discussion with these musicians until about 6:45, and then I'll do a Q&A. So if you want to put your questions and comments in the chat, we'll come to that at the end. So right now, I think we should do introductions for the musicians. If Kelli Blanchett, if you would like to start and let us know a bit about who you are and you know what sort of music you play and what your music career looks like.
Okay. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Am I okay? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks. My name is Kelli Blanchett. I'm a musician from Northamptonshire. From a place called Corby, and I moved from there to London and have done music in both areas. Started off playing in Northamptonshire in the scene there, and then met some music managers at the time who were based in London, who are from Northamptonshire, and they said to me to come down to London and do some work with them. So I came down to London and did some music stuff with them, and then I joined a band and did some session musician work. And then I met Rebecca from Self Esteem, and we chatted for a while, and she was looking for some musicians to join her project Self Esteem. So I joined Self Esteem and then have been working with them for the last 2 or 3 years as a session musician, working on 2 albums and a couple of tours and some festivals and stuff as well. So we played Great Escape and Latitude, Field Day. And we've just finished the 2nd album, and that'll be out hopefully this year at some point. And I'm just about to embark on my solo EP, which I'm recording this year as well with Rebecca, who's going to be co-producing it. So that's me.
Amazing. And what sort of genres do you work in? Is it pop?
Well, so Self Esteem is very like pop. But the stuff that I make is more sort of downbeat, lo-fi, DIY sort of sounding stuff. It's more folky, I'd say.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
And Ruth Patterson, how about you? Tell us a bit about you and your music.
I'm Ruth Patterson. I am a white woman. I've got lots of curly brown hair, half up, half down. I'm wearing a white shirt, black top over the top, lots of silver jewellery, and I am currently in my little home studio that at the beginning of lockdown I turned into a very small recording studio, but it was our spare bedroom. So there's lots of chaos in here. There's some wall paneling, mics. It's actually a really bit of a mess now I'm looking at it. Lighting, and got some guitars and violins and things strewn about the place. I am based in Newcastle upon Tyne, and I've been here for about a decade now. I'm a solo artist. I write for string quartet and piano, but I'm also in a band. I'm in a folk rock band called Holy Moly and the Crackers. I'm the lead singer in that. So I've been touring with them full time. My full-time work is being a musician, which I'm very, very grateful for. So 5 years doing that, and I've been a solo artist for about 2 years now. Trying to think what else. I am also a disability activist. I work closely with many different charities, as much as I can take on, much as I've got time for, but Attitude is Everything is the main one that I'm an ambassador for. Do loads of stuff with them, do lots of work at Great Escape, Cambridge Folk Festival, do lots of live panels when we're able to, when there isn't a global pandemic going on. And yeah, I was Sage Gatesheads, which is, the Sage is a big institution in the northeast. It's kind of like the Northern Roundhouse. It's kind of like that. And I was artist in residence there for a year last year. So yeah, lots going on. I'm a very busy bee. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for describing yourself as well, being aware that there are people with sight difficulties or who are blind logged into the panel as well. So thank you for that. Now turning to Elena Piras, will you describe who you are and your music?
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me, Vic. I'm honored to be here. So I am a folk musician, but I started to be a musician at the age of 7. I was born and I brought up in Sardinia, in Italy, and I came to the UK when I was 18. And a couple of years after that, I co-founded a London Bulgarian choir, and sang with them and did a lot of stuff with them for many years. And then I moved to Scotland, where I started my solo career as a folk musician. And I basically recorded my first album in 2010. I studied a lot of traditional folk music there in Scotland as well, and learned Gaelic, which I sing in as well as speak the language. And then I spent a lot of time in Scotland learning songs and working with different musicians and picking stuff up basically. And then I moved back to initially Wales, and then I now live in Oxfordshire, and I've just recorded my second album, which has been released last December. And basically I've been sort of working on marketing it a little bit now, and I've recorded the album during lockdown in a shed and partly also in my home. I forgot to describe myself. I've got a big head of curly brown hair, very long, and I'm wearing a grey top that matches a grey necklace that I'm wearing as well, with a paler grey jumper and a brooch which is black with red highlights and a white center. It's a flower. I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm also a member of SWIM, which is a Scottish Women Invented Music, and I've been doing a lot of work with them, and also I just joined the network with Attitude is Everything as well.
Thank you. Yes, and we'll certainly discuss some of the organisations who are have helped you or are helping you on your way, and Attitude is Everything. Of course, have a very special place in the music industry, and how I connected with three of you. But Eleanor, I should also make a disclaimer, is that, well, I met you nearly 20 years ago when we both sang, when I joined the London Bulgarian Choir, so I've known Eleanor a very long time. And now, last but not least, Ali Hertz, would you like to also describe who you are and what your music career looks like?
Yeah, if this is all working. Can you hear me and whatever else? Awesome. That's always a good start. I'm really bad with technology. That's like one thing to know about me. So that always seems to go wrong for me. But yes, I'm Ali. I'm the front woman to Idealistics. I'm white female. I've got short brown, kind of, I'd say curly, but I feel like that's an overstatement. It's just kind of messy most of the time. Today I decided to put like glitter lips on. I've got a choker, a white t-shirt, a black like low cut top, and I've got a feeding tube in my chest. I think that's a good enough description. So Idealistics is my band, our band that I'm part of. That's we kind of do, like, I'd go indie rock, I'd probably say, but kind of into prog rock as well. So we kind of do whatever we can when there's not a pandemic. It's really hard to look back kind of past the pandemic now. I feel like I've forgotten what I did before then. But during kind of lockdown, we were kind of stuck together as a band, so that was pretty cool because it meant we could do lots of live streams, and we've demoed an album over lockdown, so we're kind of ready to record that properly and release it as and when we can. So yeah, that's generally what we've just kind of go around playing gigs. We've got quite a lot of history of the music industry in terms of we had to take a break for a long time because it was definitely not very inclusive for us as a band to do with my disability and stuff. So that was pretty tough. So we've only kind of been back in it for the last few years after taking probably about a year break, I'd say. But yeah, so we do a lot, just going around all over the country, doing gigs, recording, working alongside other artists. I'm an ambassador for a dual ambassador for the FAC and Attitude is Everything. So that's what I do, and general, advocating for disabilities and stuff like that. So that's generally what we do.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to be introduced to you all, and I guess I should probably join in and sort of describe myself as well. So I'm a middle-aged woman now with blonde shoulder-length hair and glasses and a very round face. That's sort of how I describe myself. So getting on to the gist of the discussion, I really wanted to talk to you this evening about, what are the barriers you have all faced as disabled female musicians, but also to give some tips and advice and so on. So really, I think I'm really interested in how you started your music careers. What helped you get started? So Kelli, if I can return to you and ask you, how did you get going?
So for me, when I first started making music, I was still living in Corby, and there was just getting involved in the scene. I mean, I remember the scene being lots of, like, it was very male dominated, and I was probably one of the only females at that time making any music. So, and I found it a bit more difficult to get involved because it was a bit like, whoa, this is like it's male space. But finally, they let me join, which was lovely of them. And they, I know, but no, it was really difficult to penetrate to start off with. And then they finally sort of realized that I could make music, and they let me start playing gigs with them. And then from there, I met the music managers that I first sort of made connections with quite early on, so I was quite lucky. And I think like because it was a bit different to what was going on at the time, and there was a female making music, it seemed a bit more interesting for them, and they basically heard some of my music and then started asking me to come down to London and do some sort of sessions and stuff. So for me, I mean, being part of a scene to start off with, and then I met some other females within the Northamptonshire scene, which was amazing. And then just basically for me, just starting off small and then moving to London was a completely different kettle of fish. But for me, I felt like, again, it was like whenever I played a gig and there was another female on the bill, it was always amazing. It always felt amazing. We always got to chat and we connected. And that's how I met Rebecca in the end, just from connecting through social media. So for me, reaching out on social media, whenever I'd heard some music or gone to a gig that I'd enjoyed, or played any gigs where there were other females on the bill, just connecting really helped. And it was quite organic for me, just the way that it moved from the Northamptonshire scene into the London scene. It was an interesting time. It wasn't very, didn't feel very inclusive at the time, but it was a while ago now, and things have moved on.
But it seems that your initial step was the hardest, as you say, breaking into that male-dominated scene.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know if you have a visible or an invisible disability.
Yeah,
I don't know. But...
My disability is invisible, which has its own problems at times. So for me, I only became disabled in 2018. So I've experienced the industry with a disability and without, which has been interesting to see. So
your first experience of discrimination was as a woman.
Yeah,
basically.
Definitely, 100%.
Yes, that's interesting. So, and Ruth, what about you? How did you get started?
Well, I've always played music. I started playing the fiddle when I was 5, and I actually always knew I wanted to be a musician, but I didn't know that I would end up like this. And actually, my disability has completely changed the course of my life and my musical career. So when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a classical violinist, and that's what I was sat on. I was going to Leeds College of Music, which is a university. I was doing that at weekends. Weird kid, very, very weird kid. I was obsessed with music, and obviously didn't have a lot of friends. So I spent all my time wanting to be a classical violinist. And when I was 15, I was first diagnosed with my first disability, and which is arthritis, and it was very severe. I was in hospital for a lot of time, missed the last 2 years of school, and it meant that I couldn't use my hands at all for 2 years, so I couldn't play any instruments. And that's what started me singing. I'd never thought about singing before. I'd always wrote little songs, but I'd never thought about singing. And so I met my partner when I was 16. I know. And we're still together, we're married now, childhood sweethearts. But I met him when I was 16, and he really encouraged me to start trying to play instruments again, and encouraged my singing. We started a band together, and we are still in that band. So it's always been for me, getting started was about community and encouragement from peers. Disability definitely shaped that as well. But over the course of the journeys that I've been on, I became a full-time wheelchair user when I was 21, which was another sort of another change that I had to adapt to. But the communities, I mean, Newcastle, we've got a fantastic music scene. We're all incredibly encouraging of each other, and I think that has massively impacted how far I've been able to go with my music. And I know it sounds like inspiration porn, but like literally I don't feel like I have. I really feel like I've been able to do whatever I want because I've got the right people around me, and I feel very, very, very lucky. I'm very privileged to have that as well. But there's things like when I started doing my own project as a solo artist, I started thinking about that in 2018. And I did a residency with Nadine Shah, and that kind of got me thinking about this. And then I did my residency at Sage and these things, and it made me realise how much I do depend on other people and other institutions for that help, because suddenly I didn't have 5 other people around me, it was just me, and that was quite interesting. It almost felt like starting again from scratch rather than something that organically grew out of my childhood and kind of adapted as I went. This was kind of a new project that I wanted to do for me, and it was like totally me, and it's made me realize how much I need other people, and also how much help I have had. But there are loads of like talent development agencies up here, great things like Tipping Point, Generator, that do pick up emerging artists and really do try and catapult us and give us confidence, which is another thing that I think emerging artists really need. And I'm really lucky to have the BBC backing me this year for my solo work, because they've picked me as one of their top 10 artists to back in the Northeast. So that's something that I'm really excited about as well. But yeah, like Kelli was saying, it's a lot about networking, it's a lot about finding people, chatting to people, reaching out online, and that's how I kind of got started. Community spirit, I think, is the element of that.
Fantastic, and a proper Geordie ethos, I think, as well. And Eleanor, what about you? So you were born and brought up in Sardinia. How did you end up in the UK and start your music career?
So yeah, I was brought up in Sardinia, and my music sort of career started when I was there, really, because so I started initially singing in church, and I did a lot of solo work at big events, children's events, and also TV work. And then when I was a teenager, I joined a professional choir, doing operas, and we also recorded a CD doing jazz standards with a proper orchestra and everything. And the conductor basically used to take me with him to do weddings. So I started earning money since the age of about 14 or 15. And then I discovered a college for the blind in Herefordshire, and I knew that in Italy we had no provisions for people with a visual impairment to become independent. So I knew that I had to do something about it, and I basically took a long time to plan how to get there, and most of all, how to break the news to my parents. I just managed to get some. I had a lot of money saved because my father was a banker and he saved a lot of money for me. So when I was 18, I was able to access this money, and I paid for the first term and a half of college here. And I recorded my first demo when I was here at the age of 18. And then I was doing a lot of things music related, and then after that I managed to get another scholarship for a year at the college, and my father didn't want to pay for the flight, and I was called to do a wedding, and the captain, the guy was an army captain, and basically spent an hour with me trying to convince me what to do, or how much to charge him. And I said, well, actually, I've got to fly to England. And so he basically paid for my flight. That wedding was the thing that clinched it. And I stayed here, and I didn't really have a problem with I didn't realize there was going to be a problem with my disability and being a woman, because in Italy, everybody just, believed in what I did, and I got work, and I had no problems at all. And basically, when I came here, then everything just changed completely. So I found that, first of all, my disability was a major barrier for me getting work. And also being a woman was a major barrier, because the music industry was and still is male dominated. So my career as a solo artist properly started in 2008, I think. And then I recorded my album in 2010, and I did everything on my own. Nobody helped me to find a recording studio. I did everything myself. I paid for it all myself. And I just hoped for the best. And networking has been very difficult for me because I'm on my own. I don't have anybody that says, oh, look, this is that person that you should speak to. So, you know, nobody's going to be able to point things out to me. And so I've been trying to do things myself, and sort of live streaming has helped a little bit, but not as much as I thought it would. Um, and yeah, I recorded my album again the second album once again, all on my own, and paid for some marketing to be done, and I got a couple of reviews through that. But yeah, that's basically been it. And I feel that the whole um, the whole scene is difficult for me. It has been hard.
So what we're hearing is that not only, you know, have you experienced barriers for being a woman and a disabled woman, but an immigrant as well, and therefore you haven't had maybe the friends and family and networking support that have helped others.
Yes.
Well,
yes. Sorry, I just was going to say that as an immigrant as well, I kind of felt sometimes that you know, I was sort of, you know, the attitude was, what are you singing this stuff? You're not from here. What do you want? So yeah, that was another aspect as well.
yes, that's very tough, Eleanor, for sure. So, Ali, what about you? How did you get started?
So yeah, basically I started when I was quite young, always wanted to sing, like that classic, like when you're just young at like primary school, everyone wants to get up on a stage and perform because you got like mountains of confidence and stuff. So yeah, and I started, I was born with my disability, so I've got many things, but just the overall basically is that it's a connective tissue thing, which leads problem, which leads to lots of other issues basically. And I didn't know at the time that my left lung doesn't work, so I would sing, but I wouldn't know how to regulate my breathing, so I'd end up fainting from lack of oxygen, have to be whisked away in an ambulance, which just, you know, it made for an exciting show, but definitely not the kind that I wanted to achieve. So I got it checked out, and you know, I said, is that the end of singing? And the doctors were kind of like, no, but you know, you need to figure out how to sing and figure it out for yourself. So I went to a singing teacher who did, like, she worked with Ely Cathedral Choir because I'm in like Cambridgeshire area. So Ely is like, you know, within that area as well. So yeah, so I worked with her because she did like classical singing. So very different to what I usually would sing, and she taught me basically how to regulate you know, my breathing and stuff like that. So that's how I first kind of got into singing. Like Ruth, I actually did play violin for a bit, but because of the issues that I have with my connective tissues and my joints, I had to give up violin because you have to hold it at really awkward angles, and it wasn't great. So then I was doing singing, and I picked up bass guitar because I just really love the instrument, and I've had to give that up in the last, I think it was in the first lockdown. We had to call it quits due to my shoulders. So I've had to give up bass guitar now. So when we first do our live shows, it will be my first live show as just a singer, which will be really weird, I think. But yeah, that's what we did. So I then met my partner when I was about 15, 16, and we started Idealistics together, and he's a guitarist, and we were doing stuff, you know, playing around whatever pubs, because he's from Derbyshire, so we had like Cambridgeshire and Derbyshire as our areas to be, so that was pretty cool, because then we did everywhere along the way as well when we were traveling around on trains. So we played quite a lot and stuff, and then, as I mentioned earlier, we took a break because I got my first feeding tube, I think that was 2018 or something, and the first one they put in went up my nose, and all these pubs we've been playing for years just suddenly went, no, we won't have you on at all. So I spoke to some major promoters, labels, managers, all the people that have been really supportive of us before. They all suddenly just turned their backs and were like, no, we're absolutely not. I mean, all of them said that they just would not represent / support someone who had a disability, basically. And because it was so visible, they were like, that's a big issue. Because before they were like, you know, you could hide it a bit more, but they had major issues with the fact that we couldn't hide the feeding tube. So that's why we kind of for a year got, I mean, you know, we had loads of people supporting us in terms of, you know, who wanted to listen to us and stuff like that, but there wasn't much I could do when when venues and promoters and people just literally wouldn't have us play. Like, venues just were having none of it, so there was nothing I could really do in terms of, you know, getting around those barriers. And I went to a gig in Wales. It was a school night, so I was naughty, left college a bit early and drove to Wales with the rest of the band. So that's my sister, who's the drummer, and my partner. We drove to Wales to see the frontman of Manic Street Preachers do just like a little gig himself. And he was doing that, and kind of just by weird luck, I'd say, he asked if anyone wanted to duet one of the songs. And Manic Street Preachers have been in my life since I was about 5 years old, thanks to my older brother. And it's how I met my partner as well. We met them through a fan group. So my sister was pretty confident I'd know all the lyrics to this duet, so she started screaming, and I was absolutely terrified because at the time I still had the feeding tube up my nose, so it had become quite a source of insecurity for me, thanks to how I'd been treated by the rest of the music industry. So I was terrified. But he called me up and I went up and I sang alongside him, which was really cool. And he was super, super, super encouraging. And literally he kept saying that he knows that how the music industry works, and he knows that I'll be having a tough time because of the tube and stuff. And he was like, don't let anyone dictate, you know, what you're doing and how you do it and who you are, basically. And he was like, please just get back out there and, you know, keep making music and keep doing things. And obviously thanks to his help, lots of people suddenly started viewing me, the band, quite differently. And suddenly we were able to start getting gigs. We were getting, you know, a lot of support from people, from managers, labels and whatnot. And we met a lot of people just in that one night, really. I met lots of people that came forward and suddenly wanted to support and help out, basically because he had just given that platform to be able to go up there and, you know, just perform just as a musician, really, not with anything else, which is what I was having problems with before. You know, venues and whoever else wouldn't let us play because they weren't even willing to give us a listen or even, you know, just think of us as musicians because of the feeding tubes and stuff. So it was really tough during that time. But then, yeah, thankfully, like I said, we were suddenly given a second chance, really, in the music industry, and that's been brilliant. And then it was since then, I guess, that is what made me want to advocate a lot more within the music industry, because I realized that there were, you know, it was much harder to get anywhere in the music industry, and, you know, lots of issues as well, being female. So female with a disability was just like super difficult. And because I also do a lot with horses, and I found that horses, the equestrian world was a lot more actually inviting and welcoming and supportive. So that's why I thought, actually, I want to really see what we can do about the music industry and kind of change that as well, because it was just, you know, the change from when the feeding tube went in was just, you know, something else. I had never really witnessed anything like it, let alone lived anything like it. But it was really awful, you know, got a lot of horrific phone calls. I had to listen to pretty horrific things said down the phone to me, which I just would never ever expect from something that was just, you know, I mean, I needed it to keep me alive. So it was really shocking, actually, to have people be so horrific about it. So yeah, I'm very grateful that the band had a second chance to kind of come back in the music industry, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that's how we've been going.
Gosh, I mean, that's an astonishing story. I'm just outraged that you had that discrimination said to you and said to your face, and that venues wouldn't book you, and you lost support. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. I mean, surely it breaks equalities legislation all over the place, but what can you as an individual do about that? That's really appalling, and to the detriment of the music industry, actually, because the music that you all create and bring is informed by who you are and your personal experiences, and adds to great music. So it just baffles me. But really fantastic. You managed to find, somebody important and influential, who could act as a gatekeeper and an advocate for you. And gosh, well, we need more of that, don't we? We need these, especially these, male superstars to have diversity riders, when they're performing, and other good acts. So well, good for them. Gosh. And really, does anyone have any sort of advice? Just let's imagine that in the audience here we've got some aspiring young disabled female musicians who really want to make a go of their own music careers. Would any of our panelists have any advice or tips or suggestions about what they could do? Would anyone like to?
Well, I'll go ahead then, if I don't want to talk and then take up all the space, but I think definitely
I'll make sure everybody gets it.
I think definitely what Kelli and Ruth were touching on, with saying that you really need to speak to other musicians and reach out to people. I would definitely say that really helps, and to meet people kind of like you, and just network. Really, there are lots of lovely people out there, and lots of people that are willing to support you and help you, and charities as well. Like I said, obviously we know attitude is everything, but there are many others where you contact them and they're really willing to help and try and support you in any way they can. And lots of other artists, because there are other people, there are four of us obviously up here talking today, and we've all had our own experiences in very different ways, and there's always someone that will want to help you and try and help you get your way, make some sort of way into the industry, because we've all been there at that one stage where you can't find any way to get anywhere, and you reach this barrier and you've reached this moment where you don't know how to get out of it, and there's always someone that's willing to kind of help you and give you a helping hand out of that situation. So I definitely just try and see different people and speak to different people. Social media really helps in that sense, I'd say, where you can just kind of message people and try and reach out and contact people that can really help you, basically.
Yes, fantastic. And what about you, Eleanor? What tips would you have or advice to somebody just starting out?
Well, I would say, most of all, follow your heart. If music is what you want to do, definitely follow your heart, and definitely reach out to people. But also, I would say, don't hesitate to offer a helping hand as well. I found that I met lots of people just by joining groups and doing things. So my experience with Scottish Women Inventing Music has been really good. I joined it when it first started, and they've given me a lot of support, and I feel I'm not on my own, basically. And it's brilliant just to have other women around who are in the same boat as me, and who are actually striving to do the same as what I'm doing. Um, so I just found attitude is everything as well. I haven't had a chance to sort of see who's there and speak to people very much, but I'm sure that there'll be an opportunity soon, because I've only just joined the network a few months ago. Um, definitely reach out, and also don't hesitate to help. I've done quite a lot of work many years ago, even in the Equalities Committee, at the Musicians Union. I was part of that for many years, trying to, to help out, and so yeah, absolutely do anything you can to reach out and definitely do something for others. I do charity work for Deafblind Scotland, as well. They chosen me to be one of their ambassadors last month for Valentine's Day for a campaign they were running. So yeah, I definitely would say that. and when you can, apply for funding if you can find some.
Yes, very good advice. I'm hearing some common themes here. And what about you, Ruth? What advice would you give? What has helped you?
Yeah, so really, I agree with all those points. Yeah, I think asking for help is something that is absolutely paramount, and I think it's even harder for women to ask for help because I think that we've got to. Well, I can't speak for everybody because that would be speaking for half the planet, but I feel like we have to prove ourselves, or we feel like we have to prove ourselves. Like if you're the front person in a band and you happen to be female, maybe you turn up somewhere and people don't expect you to be the singer. They just think, oh, you're somebody's girlfriend or whatever. I've had that a lot, and especially because I'm a wheelchair user. They just think, you go through the door and they're like, oh, the gig hasn't actually started yet. You're going to have to wait until late. I'm like, yeah, well, I think they might need me in sound check, like. So it's stuff like that. I feel like we really do need to ask for help, and it's okay. We don't have to be strong all the time. We don't have to be proving ourselves all the time. We deserve to be in the music industry, and we're there for a reason because we make good music. So that's something, asking for help, really, really important. The funding thing that Elena just touched on, really, really important. And I've had a big journey with funding. And I think actually for our mental health, the funding, the way that the funding bodies work, obviously it's fantastic that they're there, but it really can knock your confidence. And I had a few years of going for funding and just getting rejected and rejected and rejected. And I just didn't know what I was doing wrong. And then I got Do It Differently Fund from Help Musicians. And then I got PRS Women Make Music Fund. And then I got Arts Council funding. So I think if you keep persevering, that's my tip. Keep persevering. Try not to be disheartened, and just keep going with it. Once you get there, it's easier. Once you get on the ladder, it's easier to then get more funding. And I don't know how I got the funding, but I think it's just having to have that strength to push through. And also what Elena was also touching upon, of if you've had help, like I've been shouting about, I've had so much help and so much community around me. If you can take some time out, I know we're all busy, but if you can take some time out to try and reach out and help other people, then that's really important as well. I was dual ambassador, like Ali was talking about before, for Featured Artist Coalition and Attitude. And we got through it together, and he just reached out to me because he'd seen on Instagram I was talking about this funding, and he was like, would you read my application for me, because I really need some help. I've put it in 3 times and it keeps getting rejected. And I think stuff like that is just so important. Put yourself out there, and offer to help, but also accept help and ask for help. So yeah, more community stuff. I'm in a really good mood today. Can you tell?
Thank you very much. And Kelli, what about you? Tips, advice?
Just to echo the panel, basically. I mean, I have to completely agree. Just reaching out has been huge. I'm working on a project this year, and I've already reached out to a few different sort of magazines and some zines and some disabled networks, and they've already. I mean, in my head, I just thought this is never going to go anywhere, but I'm gonna contact them anyway. And they were like, yeah, that sounds so interesting. We'd love to be involved. And my mind was blown. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So, reaching out is really, really crucial. But also Arts Council funding, I have to agree with Ruth and Eleanor picking up on the funding stuff, is that I've just got Arts Council funding, but I was rejected as well. And one of the things they said to me was, just keep putting it in. You just got to keep going, and hopefully at some point you will get funded. But one of the good things about Arts Council is that they have access costs are covered, so you can put in for access costs, and they do not come out of the amount that you're applying for. So it's not seen as a negative thing. They're really hot on the access cost stuff. So they were the ones that said to me, you're not applying for enough access costs. You need extra because of your disability. Because I was like I said, I'm only sort of newly disabled really in my head since 2018. I'm still getting my head around it. And for me, I felt like I didn't know what to ask for. And they were the ones that said to me, no, you need to be asking for more. There's more here that you should be applying for. So I have to agree with the funding and the networking. Both are huge.
Brilliant, and advice to each other as well. I think that's so important. And one of the fantastic things about Attitude is Everything's Next Stage Artist Network, which is about exactly that sort of thing, isn't it? About networking and helping each other as well. So I think we've now got to. I mean, I could chat for hours, but unfortunately we're heading towards the end, and I'm going to just check the questions for a bit of Q&A. So Rose, I don't know, should I just read? Are you sending me yes, a list of questions? Thank you very much. So somebody has asked, one of the things I find about disability is that if you go for opportunities, then equality laws are supposed to protect you, but you can be rejected in job interviews for another reason. But I often think it's disability. So employers get around equality laws, yes. Past time in hospital and career gap seems to really count against you. And I found these things. So I'm looking to move forwards and have tried to approach organisations directly over disability. So I guess that is not a question really, but I think it. I'm just trying to look for the question in there. Yes, I mean, as I said to Ali earlier, to hear some of those things that were said directly to you, I mean, I know that technically and legally that's illegal behaviour, but what can you do as an individual? If a venue won't book you, they can say one thing and pretend it's another. So an awful lot of discrimination is able to be hidden and brushed over.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, just adding to. Oh, sorry, Ruth. Sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to add to that it is. I definitely found that a lot. People very, very specifically would call me to give me the somewhat abuse that I was receiving, and I would immediately ask them to put it in writing. You can do a lot more stuff in writing, and they would decline. And then they would always be like, no, we won't write this down, because also in the day and age of social media, lots of people take screenshots nowadays, and then you can out them, and then it really helps with this whole you can prevent people from supporting those people that are ableist. So yeah, lots of it was done via phone calls. And in the end, I had to just not pick them up and hope they'd email me instead, because there was a lot less I could do with a phone call than if I had it all down in a nice email. And yeah, they do get around it. Like, it was really easy. They would say to my face, we can't have you because you're feeding tube. It would deter a crowd, which was pretty much the favorite thing to tell me. But then when I asked them to kind of write it down, they just say that, they had been booked up or, whatever. And then, on their social media, they'd be like, oh yeah, we've had this band drop out for their own personal reasons. When earlier that day, they called me to say that they won't have me on because of the feeding tube. So it was really like, they will do what they can to make sure that, they aren't doing anything that you can then call for, equality rights and stuff, but they always have their ways around it. It is really difficult. It's really hard to catch someone out to be able to prove that they've done something really rubbish. But yeah, you just kind of have to see what you can do and try and get around it, basically. But it is really difficult because they will mask their ableist. They will be ableist, and then they will mask it as something else, just to cover themselves, really. So it's really tough. Like, I do get that.
I mean, I think it just makes me so angry. And also, that sort of, making presumptions on behalf of music fans as well, who are, I don't just don't think would think that way, you know, as your fans are you know, are proving. So Ruth, you were going to come in and say something.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly say that quite a lot of the charities that I work with have started offering free legal advice for their members. So there's one called Difference Northeast based up here, and they're running workshops during lockdown with local law firms to get to know your rights. And it's not just about the music industry, it's about all industries, about knowing what you're worth, knowing what they can do and what they can't do, because some of it is just knowledge and knowing what can happen and just getting a bit of advice. But also Help Musicians offer legal advice, and so does the MU. So if you're ever concerned about anything like that, you need to speak to somebody, because they can offer some proper advice. And yeah, it's a terrible situation, and you know, obviously this situation that Ali's been through is absolutely appalling, but we can't let them get away with it. We've got to speak. You know, I'm sure you're doing all you can, but if everybody does it, then you know they'll have less room to be able to get away with this kind of behaviour. So yeah, just as I said, I think in the question they mentioned that they were going to talk to a local place or something, but yeah, I'd definitely recommend MU, Help Musicians, but also look out for disability-led charities in your local area, because that's given me a lot of support as well.
Another great bit of advice. Thank you. And so question 2. This is probably a simple question, but a big part of small folk venues, and particularly the outside venues that have become more popular in the last year. What is the best way to ask about access for stairs, cramped spaces, temperature, etc. in communications before you play at a venue, so you can prepare a bit more if you have mobility problems? So yeah, so how do you know, you booked for a gig. You know, at what point in that process do you communicate your requirements, whatever they might be? How do you check that that venue is going to be good for you to access and perform in?
I would say as soon as possible. Make it as clear as possible, and let them know exactly what you need, because then they can prepare. You can be prepared to see what you're going to find out. And you know, if you can organize a visit, if it's not too far, if it's a local venue, organize a visit to see what the place is like, so you can familiarize yourself and make decisions, you know, based on what you've seen, if you can. But otherwise, communicate as much as possible with the venue.
That's very, very good advice. And I mean, I know, Ruth, I've heard you talk about turning up to venues and you've not even been able to get on the stage. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's happened a few times. Yeah, I've had to just refuse to play shows because I can't get in the building. And I expect to be carried around to some extent because of the nature of what we do, but it gets to a point where it's just really, really dangerous, so I won't do that. But Attitude is Everything are campaigning for venues to expect disabled musicians and put it on our riders. So I would say there's a few elements to this, but what I would say is when you're building your team, when you're emerging and when you're starting and you want to get your manager, you want to get your publisher, all this, I would say agent is absolutely paramount for a disabled artist, because your agent is there to advocate on your behalf. So you don't need to worry about it. You just have to have one conversation with your agent saying, I can do this, I can't do this. This would be preferable, this is acceptable, this isn't acceptable. And so our agent is absolutely fantastic, Polly, and she just on the beginning of our rider and our tech spec, before how many microphones we have, before how many instruments we have, it's all in red saying our lead singer is a disabled artist, she's a wheelchair user, and it just lists all my access requirements, so it's there, and they can't miss it. So if anyone says they didn't know, it's not true. So yeah, I'd say agent is really important, but if you're before that stage, try figure that out yourself, and try write a tech spec for yourself, or get a friend to do it, or somebody that knows you really well. Because I would say another thing is that sometimes when you get used to things that you have to go through with your disability, sometimes it takes an outside eye to be like, actually, you'd really do well if you had that as well, or whatever it is. Yeah, so yeah, I'd say list out what your access requirements are. Temperature's a good one. That's one that I hadn't thought of. There's loads that, and everybody's different as well. All disabilities are different. So write out your access requirements, like in a perfect day, and then maybe write one of if it wasn't perfect but it was acceptable, and then try and figure out whether you can do the gig. But I'd say absolutely be upfront and say it as soon as possible, and just try and not worry about losing shows, because I know it's such a difficult thing to get over, that worry and that anxiety that you're going to lose the show and maybe they won't want you. And obviously Ali's been speaking about this a lot, but you just got to try put that to the back of your mind and make sure your safety and comfort comes first. And 9 times out of 10 they'll accommodate your access requirements if you're upfront about it.
And hopefully all decent venues will be ensuring that their buildings, that their properties are accessible, not just for music fans and audiences, but for artists as well. It just seems such a necessary and obvious thing to do, doesn't it? So okay, so another question. Thank you for all of these. What can talent development or music organisations put in place or do more of to support disabled music creators to develop their careers in music? What can music organisations do more of? Have you any thoughts about what you'd like them to do?
I think training, for me, quality training.
Sorry, Eleanor, can you talk up a little bit? You're a bit quiet.
So I think equalities and diversity training for me would be something that an organisation should really look at seriously, because I found a lot of difficulty when I was studying in Scotland, for instance. People weren't used to having people with disabilities doing music, and they just weren't prepared. They would bring all their materials in a format that wasn't accessible a lot of the time. It was really, difficult, and they had known that I was coming for a while, and they still couldn't get it done. So to me, it's like really, really enforce it, that they must have it.
Yes, that's a really good point. And there's all sorts of equality and diversity training, isn't there? But I think disability awareness and access knowledge, is a great thing for not just music organisations, for any organisation. I totally agree. Does anyone else have any more thoughts on what music organisations can be doing to better support disabled musicians?
Well, I was going to say, definitely to add on from what Elena was saying, that definitely to have that training in place, so that also you can understand a bit more about what someone who comes with a disability will need. Because lots of the time I'll say, oh well, can we put this in place, and like an organization won't understand that could ever be something that you would need to support someone with. Obviously disabilities are all different, so please do listen to the artist. And also I think this seems really obvious, but I found it's actually quite hard to find. I think there are quite a few charities I found that are doing it now. Attitude is Everything is definitely the first one I found that really did it like really well, to create such a safe space for everyone involved, basically, because it's like, and it rolls on to about making venues accessible and stuff. I think what lots of people I know that I spoke to, they kind of like downplay their disability, so they don't say everything that they need, so they put it more on themselves to have to make like, so it's less accessible for them, so they put themselves under more strain. So the next day, or like the next week, they're completely wiped out from like one gig that could have just been made accessible, that could have like made it that they've not overexerted themselves, but they're just frightened, as well as Ruth said, for this anxiety to lose the gig. You're so scared you're going to not be accepted, or you're not going to get what you want, and they're going to cancel you, that you don't say exactly what you need. I mean, you've got to love yourself. You've got to let yourself, like, you know, say what's actually true to what you need, rather than you know, downplaying it so you're not given what you need. And that is really important for music organizations, to create that safe space so that everyone can be as honest as they should be for what they need. And, you know, being, you know, like you know, with the training and stuff, to just know the sorts of things that they, you know, should be thinking about. And I know that Ashes Everything is doing, as Ruth mentioned, they were trying to kind of get the people kind of ask and expect for access requirements, you know, and also ask the artist, so the artist isn't feeling like they're constantly having to nag at these organizations. We also, you know, it'd be nice if that was just a part of the music industry where you're just asked without having to feel like you're, you know, nagging and constantly like complaining almost. And obviously you're not, this is just what you should be allowed. So I think it's really important if organizations just, yeah, basically know what they should be expecting and what they could be asking, to make the artist feel more comfortable about the whole thing, basically.
That's yeah, really, really fantastic thoughts there. I don't know, Kelly or Ruth, do you have anything to add? What do you think? Maybe talent development or music organizations?
I mean, one of the only things I can think that I think would be like super beneficial would be more networking events, places for people to really connect. They're the things that I think I have been stuck. They're the places I've been stuck the most, I'd say, is getting to a place where I feel that I don't know where to go. I've got this body of work and I've met a few people, but just to like meet some, not, you know, to meet some other disabled musicians who are having the same problems. But it would be also good. It would be good to intermingle people from the industry who don't have disabilities, who need to come and understand what it's like for us, and have them see what it is that we need to thrive in the music industry.
They should be listening in right now, shouldn't they? Yes, we need to do more sessions like this. I think, and you know, it just yeah, I'm really sort of shocked to look at the statistics in the music industry. I think it's something like only 5% of those working in the music industry say that they have a disability, whereas actually it's just under 20% of the UK population has a disability. So there's a real drop there. So there's definitely exclusionary barriers going on.
I was just going to say something about that, Vic, as well. I was just going to say, like, hi Lucy, I see your question. I was just going to say about talent development agencies, and that's one of the agencies that I was kind of talking about at the beginning as well. I think instead of, well, first of all, I think that as a diversity group, like, disability has like quite low visibility in the music industry, and it just feels like it's an add-on, whereas I feel like some other diversity groups really are really making some progress. I mean, nobody's there yet, but I feel like there's real progress being going on, and disability feels like it's just been left behind a little bit. And I think that rather than just an add-on of like, oh, we'll just do this disability-led thing for BBC, so then we can tick a box and go, oh, well, that's the disabled artist taken care of. It would be nice if there was more integration of, rather than, oh, they're disabled artists, like, we're all just artists, but they just might need a bit of different support or extra support or targeted support, or the confidence to reach out and ask for support, which I think is a big one. And so it would be nice to see talent agencies targeting people with disabilities to come forward and request that help, but only people with disabilities, not so they can club together to make some little show all together, which, you know, I don't find that kind of thing very helpful, because I know what I want to do, and I want to do it on my own. I don't want to be part of a club necessarily, but I think that would be really important if you go, well, this is only for these people, and really try and lift us up This is how you find a manager, this is how you find a label, we're going to try and get you on the radio, this is how you get Spotify playlisted, and we're going to really target that support and these industry experts to just give us more of a chance. I would love to see that. I really would.
I wanted to add something else as well that I can't remember who touched on it. Actually, I think you did just now. But I wanted to say that, there is a culture through the music industry about hiding things that are not perfect. And we're certainly in that category. And unfortunately, the reason why people play their disability down sometimes, I mean, I haven't done it, but, I know people who have, is because they feel that, it's the same thing with age. I mean, I was told one day when I was studying that, you couldn't get any decent gigs unless if you were over 28, your career was done as a woman. So it's just like, basically completely discriminatory towards anything that wasn't just what they are looking for and the image they want to create. And I think there should be something about stamping out this culture in general for everything, because we are maybe the worst targeted people towards this, because we have something that shows a disability and women on top of that, and it's just like a huge thing that needs to be worked to stamp on that.
So as well as all of the other barriers, we add in music's ageism.
Oh yes.
As well, which writes off anyone aged over 28. Oh my goodness, that was a very long time ago for me.
Out, just in case you know.
So another fantastic question I'm reading in the chat here, and I apologise if I don't get to all of them. There's so many. So Kath says, how do you cope if you can't actually make it work? I have seizures and other situations where I wouldn't be able to push through a half-hour gig without harmful repercussions, but I often don't know till just before the show. I always tell it might happen, but people don't seem to believe me and get very upset the few times it has happened with folks I don't know. So what if you can't make it work? Has anyone had a situation like that?
Well, I've got a dynamic disability, so I have chronic vestibular migraine, which I think sometimes people think is maybe just a headache, but it's really disabling, and sometimes I can be in bed for months. There's been lots of occasions actually. So when I first started playing with self-esteem, I was able, and sort of halfway through, I became chronically ill. Out of nowhere, and it was overnight, and so everything just really changed for me. And I have a dynamic disability, so sometimes I'm really unable. At the drop of a hat, I can't do something. I'll just get ill really suddenly, and it can be. I think people often think, and like this person just said, they don't quite believe what's going on, and that can be really disheartening. And you do tend to feel like you need to push through. But do you know what? Sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you just have to look after yourself. The only thing you can do is take care of your health. That's the most important thing you can possibly do. And you cannot push through for everything. And I've been there, and I've tried, and I've made myself more ill by doing so. And sometimes you just got to let yourself rest and not put so much pressure on yourself.
Very wise words. Thank you very much, Kelli. Let me just, sorry, I'm just trying to. Gosh, I'm just reading some comments in the chat, but I'm trying to pick out the questions. Sorry about this. There's been so many. What do you think is a good way of making disabled people feel comfortable asking for particular access or other adjustments when putting together a job description, making clear that you're open to discussing the needs of the individual without putting all the onus on them to tell you what you as an organisation should be doing. So what do you think is a good way of making disabled people feel comfortable when you're putting together a job description? I don't know if any of you have put together job descriptions before, but I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. I mean, I guess it's what do you think is a good way of making disabled people?
I think I have been asked by a few institutions over lockdown about how they can open back up better, and I've been helping a few little places with this kind of thing. And I think it's just about keeping it simple, because it doesn't have to be a big thing on the form, but it just, like you would say, how do you describe yourself? How do you identify? What are your gender pronouns? Things like that, which are becoming quite common in society. Just like, for instance, do you have any access requirements? Is just something really simple. Doesn't have to be long-winded. And if you are disabled, you'll understand what that is. And if you're not, you might not, and just go, no. and then somebody that is will go, oh, well, actually, that's great. I can attach my sheet, or you can fill it in, or it just shows. I think it's a really great question, and I think more people should be asking that question, because it shows that you understand, even if you don't know everything about disability, you understand that some people are disabled and some people have access requirements. And it could be just as simple as that. When you're asking those questions that you have to ask for law and your name and all that stuff, just, do you have any access requirements to disclose? We're happy to discuss them. Simple as that.
As simple as that. I really love that. Thank you. So I'm just trying to find another question. That was the last question. So I think for the last few minutes, I'd really like to hear what you've got coming up this year as we move out of lockdown. Hopefully very safely. What are your musical plans for this year? And Kelli, should we start with you again?
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to be recording my first solo EP in April, and Self-Esteem's going to be co-producing that for me, which is going to be cool. So I'm looking forward to starting that. And there's also a mini documentary that we're making to go alongside it, which is a documentary covering the correlation between love and relationships and class. So that's going to go, because that's sort of what the EP is about. So there's going to be a documentary that goes alongside that as well. So that's starting at the start of this year. And then the Self-Esteem album should be out at the tail end of this year. And there should be at that point some gigs, but I only do the London gigs with Self-Esteem for, I can't tour with the illness that I have. I have a very sensitive inner ear, which means I can't go in the tour van. So I can't really tour. So I do the London gigs with them at the moment. So I'll be doing that as well.
So that sounds, well, you've got your whole entire year planned out, haven't you? It sounds fantastic. And I want everyone listening in the audience here to immediately go out and buy all of this music as well.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And Ruth, what about you? What have you got planned?
I'm currently writing and recording my debut EP at the moment in this very room, but I've got some virtual producers that are on Zoom all the time, keeping an eye on me, making sure I'm doing all the right things. So that's been really fun, new experience, and it's really cool because a lot of studios are inaccessible. So it's something that I've always wanted to do, is have somewhere I can just scoot in and then scoot next door, go to bed, have a nap, come in. If I can't sleep, I can come and record in here at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's fantastic. So yeah, it's been actually really good to have that time to put to this of what I need, and it's fantastic. Yeah, so I'm doing that, lots of writing, lots of recording, releasing the EP, trying to figure out how to do music videos in lockdown and what that looks like, because I also don't have an immune system, so I've been very, very worried for the last year. So I've had my vaccine now though, yes. So yeah, music videos, launches, releasing music, and then my band that I'm also in, which is a 6-piece band. We have got festivals and we've got a lot of shows. Even though I said I didn't want any shows this year because I just wanted to do my thing, they've just creeped in somehow. So I've got quite a lot of shows this year, and we'll be releasing new music with that as well. So I'm kind of dividing myself in half this year, but it's exciting, and I'm really looking forward to getting back on the road and seeing my pals again, if it's possible. So yeah, busy year, very busy year.
Gosh, that sounds great though. And Eleanor, what have you got coming up?
Well, so I've been trying to work out how to do music videos as well, because I'd like to get some done for my new album. So I'm a one-man band basically, so I've got to do everything. I'm doing everything myself, with a little bit of help. So yeah, doing those. I've got a couple of charity things coming up later in the year, and I just hope to get some gigs going too.
So I mean, you just produced and released your album in December, didn't you? So you need to give yourself a bit of breathing space after creating and releasing an album. So yeah.
There is never, a moment's peace though. After you release it, you've got to work on marketing it and everything. So you just always sort of, looking at things and doing things and looking, for opportunities and sending people emails and whatnot. So yeah.
Yes, not just the fun bits creating music, but all of the business side of things as well.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And Ali, what have you got coming up?
Yeah, so well we actually as a band we haven't booked any live shows really for our own things, and we had to put like launches and stuff on hold just because as well I don't have an immune system, so we're just having to be careful. Festivals have been booked though, and unless they cancel, we are still hoping to do the festivals that we've got booked. We just won't book our own tour or anything. But yeah, we've been doing like the live streams and stuff, and this has been a really good time actually, working with organizations and speaking to different media outlets to kind of raise awareness of disabilities. I think especially with the fact that live shows aren't going ahead, I don't know, I found there's a bit more of a voice going on right now. I've been able to talk a lot more to different people and stuff, so we'll hopefully continue when everything starts opening up again to kind of talk to those organizations still and do that, to make venues accessible and stuff like that. And then we've demoed an album, which actually we did fairly early on in the lockdown, which I think was the biggest mistake, because I think we've managed to come up with a double album by now. So we're going to have to narrow that right down, and hopefully record that properly, and hopefully release that soon. But yeah, so basically just the album and hanging out and seeing what happens with what's going on in the world. So
So it sounds like actually maybe for all of you, the lockdown has sort of been quite beneficial in an odd way, because it's given you time to sort of reflect on your music and focus on your music instead of being all stressed and on tour, and so there's some creative joy has come out of the hardship. So does anyone have any final thoughts, any last minute things that they'd like to say to the audience about their experiences, or any last minute advice that you'd like to give before we wrap up? Or are we all done?
I was just going to say about that question about having to cancel a gig or not being able to perform. I had an experience with that. We had a really big tour. We just got signed to a German agency, and it was quite big stakes, and we had quite a lot of people come into the shows, and I just got really sick, and my immune system shut down, and I just couldn't move, let alone play a show. So the rest of the band decided to play without me, and that was a decision that we made. But I would say, like, it's really sad to hear that people don't believe you, and I luckily didn't. I had a very different experience to that. But I would say, I don't know. I'm trying to think about how to help that, and trying to use my experience to try and help. But I do wonder whether there's something in maybe asking a friend to like work with you, or maybe if you're having a difficult situation like that, and you're gonna, because it's also soul destroying to have to turn down work and not be able to perform, and I know exactly how that feels, and it's horrible. So maybe it's like having a best friend, or having somebody that you can go to that can maybe advocate on your behalf, which I've found very helpful. My partner does that for me. If I'm just too poorly, the last thing I want to do is try and come up with words to tell people disappointing news that I'm not going to be able to make it. So having that support around me has been something that I wouldn't be able to do it without. So if there's anybody that you can maybe turn to break that news on your behalf, and then if they don't believe you, you don't need to worry about that, and you don't need to stress about that. You just need to concentrate on getting better. I just wonder if that's something that you could think about. I don't know, it just kind of came in and I thought, oh, that's horrible, how can we help? But that would be something for all of these situations. Actually, having other people that can speak on your behalf so you don't have to stress about it and make yourself more ill is something that I've found I couldn't do without. So that's my bit of advice. People, networking.
Well, that's yes, a great note to end on. I think we're hearing, networks and friendships and professional teams or music organisations, to reach out and get that help. And I want to give a very extra special shout out to Attitude is Everything, whose amazing founder Suzanne Bull is in the audience. Suzanne, who does such fantastic work ensuring that 20% of the population can not just go and enjoy music events, but also be the artists on stage as well. And also just to give another shout out for the F list. If you're a female musician and you're not on it, just go online and create your own listing. And also a very extra special shout out to the Musicians Union, to John and Rose for organising these events and coming to me with the idea of doing intersectional female events, of which this one has been very special. So. Thank you very much, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at another event like this very soon.